One of the very Appalachian things about me is I'm not too keen on forgiveness.
We broke into all the empty mobile homes and wrote our names on the walls. I'm gonna be like,
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Carter on Camera, episode 3. As always, this is part of my capstone, and if you would like to learn more, click the link in my bio. We're going to get right into things today. Growing up in Appalachia is a mixed bag of emotions. Growing up gay in Appalachia is an even bigger, more mixed bag of emotions. This week, however, we are going to be focusing on the upsides of growing up here and the places in which you can find safe spaces. Now, lucky for me, I had a very, very accepting family. I never had to worry about whether or not my sexuality was going to be a problem for them. I was absolutely safe under that roof. However, I did have to worry every time I stepped foot out from under that roof. Every time I went to school, every time I went to Walmart, every time I went to a restaurant. I always had this weight on my back of just fear that I was going to get a dirty look. Someone was going to say something under their breath. At school, they did it not under their breath, but I knew I was always safe in my house. I learned over time you have to search for safe spaces as a queer person because they do exist, but they're usually hidden. In small towns, these safe spaces are few and far between. One of these spaces for me was theater. When I was around middle school age, it was around the same time I was figuring out my sexuality, I joined theater, and it was incredible for me. It was an incredible experience. I finally found a place where I could explore myself, but also get outside of myself. I could get into the role of somebody else for an hour or two a day and forget about that. I clung to that feeling throughout middle school. I did every play there was. I even did plays a half hour away just so I could be under the roof of a theater and feel home. I ended up getting really close friends throughout theater, people I came out to before I came out publicly. And we had a big falling out, so fuck them. One of the very Appalachian things about me is I'm not too keen on forgiveness. If you break my trust, it's broken forever. As Cardi B says,
a girl had beef with me, she gonna have beef with me forever.
Forever. So after I had that falling out with that friend group, I kind of fizzled out of theater, but I will always have a place for theater in my heart. I will always support theater. Going into high school, I had a better sense of who I was, but I still needed a place to be that. I took family and consumer science classes because I thought they would be fun, and they were, but they ended up being so much more to me than just that. My freshman year of high school, my family consumer sciences teacher and I ended up really bonding over something that probably seemed small to most, but to me, it meant the world. We were talking about fast food in class and what's our favorite places to eat. And of course, you get Chick-fil-A. People say Chick-fil-A. People love Chick-fil-A for some reason. And all she said was, "Oh, I don't eat at Chick-fil-A." And I knew what she meant by that. She wasn't outright saying anything political because teachers aren't supposed to, but I knew what she meant. I knew what her intentions were. I signed up for more of her classes. I ended up getting really deep into it. I became a state officer for FCCLA. I love FCCLA. Again, another place that will always be near and dear to my heart. The thing about FCCLA and my family consumer science experience in high school is that it wasn't just for queer people. There were people of color. There were a lot of women. It was a safe space for anybody who needed a safe space. And for that, I am very grateful of not only the family consumer sciences, because that's kind of the nature of it, but especially my teacher. I mentioned that my family was accepting earlier, but one thing I will forever be grateful for is the fact that I wasn't just accepted, I was protected. My parents did everything in their power to protect me from homophobia, whether that was leaving certain churches, whether that was cutting off certain family members. They would take me to DC as much as we could. They took me places where I could be out and proud and loud about who I am. They took me to DC Pride. They would take me to concerts. They took me to therapy an hour away from where I lived because I wasn't comfortable. And so they took a couple hours out of every week to take me an hour away to therapy. So I will forever be thankful to theater, FCCLA, and my family. Speaking of, I have a very special guest for you all today. Here is my mom.
"Hi."
So I have a couple questions for you. Number one, what does being Appalachian mean to you?
I think the word that comes to my mind first is family, home. Things come to my mind like my granddad would hunt squirrels and we would have squirrels for dinner. That's absolutely Appalachian. And gardening, we would eat off the land. My granddad was very big on gardening. We played outside all of the time. Nobody had a lot of money, but everybody in the holler that I grew up knew each other, and they were all involved with each other. And so it was a community. It was family. It was everything I knew. It was home, but it was also very isolating and very lonely in a lot of ways.
So you touched a little bit on what it was like growing up here. Could you expand on that a little more?
It was all I knew. So as I said, there was just such a sense of community. And if something happened to a neighbor, then we all dealt with it. Or if this person was in the hospital, then we took care of that person. And as I said, we played outside all the time. We were outside from the time we got up until the time we went home, and really didn't have a lot of limits. But because we were in the country, it wasn't like riding your bike through town. So we played in the woods, in the fields, and down at the creek, and just in the country. But it was also lonely because there was really no entertainment, or there was no options for anything else. And I always wanted to be in town. I hated living in the country. I wanted to be in town.
Yeah. Was it difficult growing up and raising kids in Appalachia?
Yes and no. It was difficult raising a gay son in Appalachia just because of, Appalachia is not really the hub of intelligence. So that was scary. That was actually very scary. And, my husband and I lived with a lot of fear, but we tried to be honest with you and prepare you. But we worried about you being safe. We worried about people giving you a hard time, and they did. And my daughter, not so much. It's not been difficult or scary. I like the small sense of community. I like the little safety bubble that's around it.
So you are a social worker and you've worked many places throughout Appalachia. How does that affect your perception of the area?
I don't think it affects my perception at all because it's all ingrained in me from birth, So it's all normal. I don't think I've had an experience where I've been like, oh, that is very specific to Appalachia. I think the lack of resources has made it difficult, especially for adolescents and younger people. The lack of addiction resources, the lack of, mental health resources, the stigma that some people still face. I still have people that I want to work with, and they say no because it's very much of what will they think of me. Also, the poverty, the generational poverty that affects families, not having transportation, that's a common one. Not having adequate housing. Most of the people that I've worked with have housing, but it's not always adequate.
And to end the interview on a more positive, playful note, what is one place that you played in as a kid that you definitely shouldn't have?
What should I say? Well, my best friend and I, growing up in the holler, were bored one day, and there were mobile homes, lots of mobile homes in Appalachia. And so there were some vacant mobile homes. We were probably 10, 11. And we broke into all the empty mobile homes and wrote our names on the walls, but thinking we were cool. It said Tara was here, was here. So we played in the vacant trailers. There were some abandoned houses too. And that was actually really cool. I remember one house that we got into. It was like the family literally just up and left. And there was still food on the table and shoes and clothes. And so probably shouldn't have played there. And And then just deep in the woods, just deep in the woods. I think about that now. And I think, oh, I would be afraid to do that now. I would be afraid of a mountain lion or a bear or, something. Back then, we went deep into the woods and weren't even a little bit scared.
Well, thank you so much for coming. With that, again, our show has come to a close. Thank you so much for watching, and tune in next episode where I talk about what I actually learned in college with a very special guest. Mwah.